Some people really and as the sun sets and the night falls and them hoes call, he pulled up at 6:30 and at 7:45.
Welcome to the Loaded Box Podcast.
Where we never finish first because we finished last.
Thank you once again for listening to the Loaded Box Podcast. I am Ben Morgan. That was DJ Primo. You can find us on iTunes by searching for Loaded Box. Make sure that you're subscribing. Leave us some reviews there. That'd be helpful as always. Thanks to those of you who already have. Make sure you're telling your friends. So I introduced DJ. DJ, what's going on today?
Not too much, just loving life. You know how it is.
Yeah, just a little bit delayed tonight because you had to make an emergency run to the store to pick up what you called butt paste.
It's not what I call it. It's what it's called. It's butt paste.
Does it actually say butt paste on the tube?
Yeah, it says butt paste. It's like the replacement for baby powder because baby powder turns out to be bad and butt paste is better for the butts.
I like that people can listen to our podcast and learn things about football. They can learn things about like side boob from haircuts. They can learn about babies' butts. I don't know, man. This is pretty much your one-stop shop. Whatever you may need.
I will drop all the baby knowledge on people.
Yeah, man. Well, besides your baby in its butt today, this week has just been crazy. Right before the combine and before free agency starts here, we're having some people getting franchise tags slapped on them, having some cuts, some people opt out of contracts. People by now probably know most of the storylines, but what's one that kind of intrigued you or surprised you so far?
Yeah, not to mention Antonio Brown and Eric Berry being the highest paid players at their position, so that's pretty critical for them. I tweeted pretty heavily on our, just a few little tweets on our Loaded Box page about that Kirk Cousins franchise tag. If I'm Kirk Cousins, he seems happy about it, and I don't get that because, I guess he had a good season. He had damn near 5,000 yards, 25 touchdowns, not a lot of interceptions. 25 isn't very many touchdowns, as I had mentioned earlier, for a guy who throws for 5,000 yards, which, again, I'm not a big Kirk Cousins believer, but if you're Kirk Cousins and you think that a team's going to believe, you think that the team has your back, they want you, you would expect them to sign you to a contract with some guaranteed money, and that's not what you're getting the second year in a row. So it's almost like, let's franchise him for another year, see if he's not that good, and there's some great quarterbacks coming in the draft next year, so if we have a bad year, I can draft like a Sam Darnold or something like that if we get lucky enough.
Right.
It's incredible.
Yeah, and it's, like you said, it's almost like one more, you got to prove it to us year. We're going to do the franchise tag one more time, so 2 years in a row. So Kirk's making bank, but at the same time, he doesn't have that long-term stability by not getting a deal. And I had heard something a little while ago about maybe this is what Cousins wants, though. Maybe he doesn't want to be in Washington long-term, so he's like, whatever, I'll go have another 5,000-yard season, and then after you can't tag me again, someone else is going to spend big on me when I'm a real free agent. Like the 49ers it seems like they really want him. So instead of paying this huge price to trade for him and take on this current contract situation, wait a year and then get him at your price in free agency.
Maybe that's why he's excited to be franchised, because he saw that the 49ers are the only team interested in him.
You saw the 49ers and the Browns just waiting, so.
Please tag me.
Right.
That's pretty much what it was.
Yeah. Oh, I like that, and just to keep things moving here. So we are going to be, the next couple of weeks here, we're going to be going division by division and just doing just kind of like a recap of where teams are right now and then what some offseason team needs will be for each team in the division that we're going through. So whether that's through free agency or in the draft here, we'll be going through those, and then also we'll be breaking down the NFL draft position by position. So this week we are starting in the AFC East, and obviously the East holds the Super Bowl champion from last year with Tom Brady and the Patriots, so you'd like to think that they are pretty set, but what do you have as their team needs, and what are they going to be addressing this offseason?
Well, first off, I want to say I'm not as polished as Ben in the college football arena because I haven't had the chance to watch football all Saturdays as much as I want to, and I like college football. I have to basically choose between Saturday and Sunday since I have a family and a kid. So
butt paste.
Saturday
Here we go.
What?
Just all you're doing is choosing butt paste over football. It's your call.
Butt paste. So Saturdays I actually spend time with the family a little bit more, and I have to schedule around the Nebraska game. So I'm getting caught up on college football, but I'm not as polished as Ben will be. But I'll do my best for everybody. So let's jump into the needs for the Bills now that I got that out of the way.
How about the Patriots, though?
Sorry, the Patriots. I just had Bills number one on my notes, and I didn't really listen to you there. I kind of went off the beaten path on the Patriots on my own. I did my research and stuff, but I put my number one thing, and maybe it's not their number one need, but my need that I didn't see many people talking about as the wide receiver position for the Patriots. And I know they have all these little wide receivers, but you would think eventually they would want to get a number one option. I don't know if Malcolm Mitchell would be that guy. Julian Edelman isn't a number one outside wide receiver. But they have some free agent options, and Alshon Jeffrey is one of those guys, I think, that could be a solid fit as a number one type wide receiver outside the numbers. I mean, they haven't had a guy like that since Randy Moss. So I put him down as a free agent option for them, and I also put down Pierre Garçon, and then a couple of draft options I put down are John Ross and Curtis Samuel, but those aren't overly big guys yet either. So I'd almost be more interested in a guy like Alshon if I'm the Patriots.
Yeah, do you? I like that too. I didn't have the receiver as one of their pressing needs because I just kind of think they make do with what they have at receiver. Yeah. I mean, the year they had Moss, they were unstoppable, but that's not even the year they won the Super Bowl. So,
but they were undefeated up till then.
Yeah, I mean, they should have. They should have won the Super Bowl that year too. I agree, though. Receiver could be something. I don't know if I necessarily have them ranked in priority, but I thought one of the situations that they're going to need to address this offseason is defensive end, because after last year they traded Chandler Jones, and now the free agents in the defensive end class are fairly weak, especially after a couple of the franchise tags that happened earlier this week. But the good thing for the Patriots and those looking for a defensive end is that the draft is pretty strong. So if you're looking at the Patriots' number 32 overall pick, a couple of guys that might be there, you'd have Taco Charlton from Michigan. Great name. First-round name by all means.
Yeah.
And then a guy that I really like, I don't want to say he's flying under the radar. He just doesn't get quite as much hype, and that might be because his name's not Taco. But it's Charles Harris from Missouri. I like him potentially if he were to fall to 32. And then another couple areas that I feel like the Patriots could improve would be at linebacker. I mean, they also traded Jamie Collins. They did not put the franchise tag on Dante Hightower, and it looks like he could stay, but it looks like he may end up going elsewhere, so you have linebacker needs. And then also tight end. It looks like they might lose Martellus Bennett, and then with the way things have been going for Gronk, I mean, the dude's a freak, but at the same point, his injury history can't be ignored. So I think if at 32, I don't think there's any way that O.J. Howard out of Alabama slides that far. But if they could get Njoku from Miami, I think that could be a no-brainer pick as a team that can afford to draft luxury. But if he's gone as well, because there is a lot of first-round hype on him, you could take a guy like Evan Ingram out of Mississippi. I'm not a huge fan of Jake Budd after tearing his knee up again in the bowl game. But Jordan Leggett out of Clemson, he had a great national championship game. These are some mid-round guys that the Patriots could add and honestly just have another great 1-2 punch again.
Yeah, you kind of jumped from two different positions there. So I did have defensive end. I actually went three deep needs on the nice. Patriots. I did have the defensive end as a position of need, and I literally put the exact same two guys that you mentioned in Taco Charlton. Nice. And I didn't copy your notes, I swear to God. Taco Charlton and Charles Harris, as well as free agent options. And I don't know if you mentioned guys getting franchise tags, and maybe I didn't miss it, but I know I put a couple of free agent options as JPP is an option, Jason Pierre-Paul.
He's tagged.
He's tagged?
Yep.
Where did I miss that?
Man, you suck.
Was Calais Campbell tagged as well?
No.
No, but I had him down as another option as well. But who wants to tag somebody with, like, no fingers on one hand?
That's the thing, though. JPP with like 8.5, 9 fingers is pretty solid. He's better than most people with 10.
And then the other position I actually had put down here as well, that I wouldn't be surprised. I'm really just focusing on the draft at this position for the Patriots, but I wouldn't be surprised if they took Christian McCaffrey.
Oh, yeah.
And it seems like it would just be such a Patriot move to take him at the end of the draft, end of the first round of the draft. I mean, because you can use him not just as a running back in so many different ways, and they seem like they like to have running backs like that are versatile.
Right.
He's a Patriot way type of guy. You can use him in so many different ways, and it's Patriot ways to me. He's a Patriot way guy.
Yeah, I think that'd be a super luxury pick. I had mentioned the tight end being a really big luxury pick for them, but I think McCaffrey definitely would be. And I think that there's so many good running backs in this class that you can wait until round 4 or 5. So I personally wouldn't if I was New England, but I understand what you're saying with him being versatile enough to play both running back and slot receiver.
And return.
And returner, yeah. So just being able to be that...
How many ways could they use him?
Yeah, that utility guy that New England really likes with guys like Deion Lewis and James White. So, You have anything else for New England?
That's all I got for the Patriots.
Alrighty, well let's move on to the Dolphins. What's your needs for them?
I'm scared to talk about the Dolphins.
No, I love it. I want to hear it from the outside opinion.
I only got 2 because I didn't want to get too in depth, and I figured you'd talk about it a little bit more. But I think their number one, I put this down as their number one need, is the linebacker position. Well, it's hard for me because between the linebacker and the defensive tackle position, it's tough because they obviously had trouble, especially at the beginning of the year, stopping the run. So somewhere in the defensive line and linebacker position, they're having some troubles. But Reuben Foster at that position at that time will probably be gone in the draft, so they realistically can't get him. So they'll probably have to try to address this position in free agency. So I was looking like a guy you already mentioned, the Patriots linebacker, and Dante Hightower, or a guy like Lawrence Timmons. But the problem with him is he's getting older. He's around 31. Plus, he throws up on the field, so that is a problem as well. I don't know if they like pukers. No. And then a Malcolm Smith who can fly around the field from sideline to sideline. Just that speed right there, I think it helps out the run. So I don't know if it was necessary. It's hard to diagnose where they were bad at the run. Because Ndamukong Suh's a freak, but he can't play both sides of the field. But who knows with the linebackers? I didn't watch them a lot. Weren't reading holes that they should be going into as well. So it's tough. So between linebacker and defensive tackle, which I also listed on here, is where I think K'Wan Short or Dontari Poe would be good options. Because there's no really good free agent guys, I feel like. Or, draft rookie options for defensive tackles that Dolphins realistically would be able to get at that position in the draft that they wouldn't be reaching for. So,
yeah.
I don't know.
Like you said, they were terrible against the run, and that was partially because the defensive ends weren't great at setting the edge. The defensive tackle opposite Sue was kind of on a rotational basis, and there wasn't much there. And besides Alonso, there were so many injuries to the linebackers, and you're playing with a bunch of just kind of guys off the street almost, that there wasn't a lot of stability. So they just got carved up on the ground. So I also had linebacker as a need. I think it'd be ideal if they could move Kiko Alonso to the outside. And like you said, if Reuben Foster is the ultimate linebacker in this draft, but if he's gone, which he likely will be, I think they have to go to free agency. So if the Dolphins could enter 2017 with a linebacker core of Kiko Alonso and then a guy like Zach Brown from the Bills or Dante Hightower from the Patriots in the middle, and then Jelani Jenkins also on the outside, I think that might be best case scenario, because I just think by the time they draft at number 22, you're going to be looking at a guy like Zach Cunningham from Vanderbilt, or maybe even like a TJ Watt, and I feel like you're getting more value out of the defensive end position there. So that was another need that I had on there. I want to see the Dolphins address defensive end in round 1 or 2. We had talked about the guys the Patriots were looking at, in Harris and Charlton. So probably those guys, maybe a Tim Williams out of Alabama. But I also, like you said, defensive tackles would have to be done in free agency before the draft as well, because you're not taking anyone right away at number 22 there. So I was with you on those. The other position, I guess, which is like the obvious hole after the proposed trade, it's not officially finalized yet, but it might as well be by moving Brandon Albert to the Jags. So now you're forced to move Laramie Tunsil from left guard to left tackle. So now you're basically without a left guard, and then you had Jamon Bushrod at right guard, and Bushrod was better than what the Dolphins had in the last couple of seasons, but he's still old. He's still one of the worst starting right tackles in the right guards in the league. So you're basically looking at an offensive line right now that has 3 first-round draft picks and then holes at guard. So if you're looking at free agency, which I think they should do, you've got a guy like
Don't say it.
TJ Lang.
Don't say it. Damn it. I didn't want to hear it.
I think you got to look at it anyways. I mean, you don't really want to overpay for a guard, but at the same point, I mean, this Dolphins team needs 2 of them. So you need Lang, maybe a guy like Ronald Leary. If you're looking in the draft, you're probably going mid to late round pick. You can't keep taking linemen this early if you're the Dolphins. Like I said, they already have 3 first-round guys on the line. So, yeah, it's great if you have a stud offensive line made of all first-rounders, but then what are you going to have for position players if you keep wasting your draft picks there?
Yeah, the Packers are really churning out offensive linemen. So I think they're actually going to have 2 options, or one of 2 options. I think, I almost guarantee, I know the Green Bay Packers, the Dolphins have a chance to go after either that TJ Lang, who I think is going to be the guy that's not re-signed, or JC Treader, who is younger and very good. I think he'll end up staying with Green Bay playing right guard, and TJ Lang will be the free agent that they won't sign. So I could see that, I mean, that would be a good person to go after for. He was great. He was, I think, the number 1 right guard in pass offense, and he's just an overall good guard in general.
Right.
So that would be a great guy to go get, and I don't like hearing that, but it's they're stacked at linemen, and eventually, you know, they got to make moves and go get some defensive guys eventually. So got to let guys like that go.
Yeah, but I think it's one of those things Miami just has to do it in free agency. So, yeah, by all means, throw your players over to me. The Dolphins need it. So, well, let's move on to the team you wanted to talk about first, the Buffalo Bills, who hold the number 10 pick in the draft this year.
Yeah, they were just first on my list. I've got just 2 positions of needs that I think just glaring positions, especially the second one that I'm going to mention. But the first one I brought up was the wide receiver position. Is a question. Robert Woods and Marquise Goodwin are both free agents. And then Watkins, you know, you said you already counted him out for 6 games next year.
Right.
So he's got his injury issues that you have to deal with. So you've got your obvious draft options here. You've got your Mike. They've got the 10th pick in the draft the Bills have. So Mike Williams is an option there. Who knows where he's going to go? I'm sure it's probably going to be in the top 10. He's such a good, talented wide receiver. Maybe they'll get him there. Otherwise, you're looking Corey Davis out of Western Michigan. Big athletic wide receiver as well. I watched him against Wisconsin, and I was impressed by him. And then also John Ross out of Washington. So those are kind of the 3 guys you're looking at. I'm sure they'd get one of those top 2 guys if they were looking at the wide receiver position. But who knows if they'd go that route. The other one, which I think I'm more likely to go for them, if I were them, is the safety position. Their starting safety, Aaron Williams, has serious injuries and actually probably will be forced to retire. And I can't remember the other safety's name, but he was just average. So they could be looking at somebody like a Malik Hooker. I mean, you've got 3 great safety options. And Malik Hooker, Jamal Adams out of LSU, or Jabril Peppers out of Michigan. I guess pick your poison on that one. So yeah. I think Malik Hooker is the top one out of those 3, but I think safety would be the one that I would address if I were them.
Yeah, I'm with you. I have, as their secondary needs, I have receiver, quarterback, potentially, and then just secondary in general, cornerback and safety. Receiver, I agree with you. I mean, if they want to go receiver at number 10, they might have their choice between Mike Williams and Corey Davis. They could get their guy. We had talked about the free agents in receivers, the Garçons, the Jeffrey. I kind of like Jeffrey there, but at the same time, do the Bills really want to sign up for another often injured wide receiver? I don't see that as being a logical step. Touched on quarterback a little bit. I only feel like they would go quarterback in the first round if they're definitely going to decide that they're not committed to Tyrod for the future. And it basically has to be your guy at 10. You can't, with so many other needs, you can't just pick and choose like a random quarterback here just because you don't really know what you have in Tyrod. So I wanted to focus more on secondary, like what you did. Originally, I thought, you just got to re-sign your own. They have Stephon Gilmore, but they didn't put the franchise tag on him, which some people thought they were going to do. So it looks like he's going to be able to test the market. And then you got A.J. Boye, Morris Claiborne, who literally stepped up 1 year. It happened to be his contract year, so lucky for Claiborne, but potentially crappy for other teams.
I can't bite on that guy. I won't bite on him, man. I will not bite on Morris Claiborne.
No.
I won't do it.
I don't. I wouldn't want to do it either. But you got a couple of decent free agent options. Logan Ryan's a free agent. There's a couple of guys that you could kick around. But I agree with you. I think at number 10, I think the Bills should go defense, cornerback, or safety. At cornerback, you got potentially that would still be there. Maybe Marshawn Lattimore. Maybe Quincy Wilson out of Florida. And you mentioned the safeties as well, with Hooker and Adams being the top two. I think Adams, I don't know, I keep hearing Adams' name in that top 5-6 range, so I feel like he might be the first one to go. But if Hooker was still there, man, I've seen some tape on him recently too, just from people that have been putting the videos on Twitter. Thanks to everyone that does that. That's pretty sweet.
I love that.
Yeah.
It's like my favorite thing. I'll sit here, I'll be scrolling through Twitter, and I will just stop and watch video. The only thing I don't like is when they don't tell me who I'm trying to watch.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't know who I'm watching.
Right. But, man, just from the stuff that I have seen from him from the last year and then from the clips that I've been watching of him, you're getting a solid defensive back in Malik Hooker. So I don't think the Bills can screw this up unless they take a quarterback like that they're not committed to.
Yeah.
I really feel pretty strong that they have a lot of options and needs, and they're going to end up with someone really good at 10.
Yeah, and that's part of the reason why I didn't put quarterback on my list here. Because number one, I'm the number one guy. I'm the president of the Thyroid fan club. So don't fuck with me and Thyroid, number one, because I'll destroy the Bills. But even if they don't go with Thyroid, I kind of am interested to see Cardin
So am I.
as a good quarterback. I really think he might be better than what people are thinking he's going to be. When he did play at Ohio State in the year that they won the national championship, I was more impressed with that guy's poise, accuracy, and reading of safeties downfield that I would like to see him get a shot in a pro offense to throw the ball with a guy like Sammy Watkins and maybe another wide receiver that they could possibly draft this year. Yeah. I don't know. I don't think I would go for a quarterback when I have I can still see what Cardale has. I would want to see him play.
Yeah, I think that's another reason why you keep Tyrod, though. You keep Tyrod, and then you have that project quarterback still in Cardale. His arm strength, there's no question there. The dude's got a cannon. The accuracy, I remember the reports from him during rookie camp last year. He was throwing balls 10 yards out of bounds, so accuracy was an issue when he had to take his game to the next level. But, you're not going to get with limited experience that Cardale Jones had, you kind of get what you get. He's a project. You knew that going into it. So if you were going to take him, and you took him for a reason, you need to invest a little bit into that. So I don't see the point of taking a new quarterback when you still have him, who may not be your long-term solution, but hey, you have him on your roster right now. He's not costing you a ton of money. You might as well see what you have.
Can we hit the pause button for a second?
Yeah, 1 second.
No, don't actually hit the pause button. Not the actual, the proverbial pause button.
Oh, man.
You just go after a guy for his accuracy in practice.
Dude, you would do the same thing when Tim Tebow was getting ripped on for his...
Exactly my point. So you're being a hypocrite right now.
I see what you did there.
Really? You love Tim Tebow, and you're going to talk about a guy's accuracy in practice? We're talking about practice, and then you are a Tim Tebow fan, and you're the one who wants him on the field, and then you're going to go after a guy's accuracy in practice. Homie, don't play that.
You think Tim Tebow's going to make the Mets this year?
Tim Tebow's a fucking grizzly bear out there. He's a robot. He can't barely move with all those workout muscles.
Right. How about the reports today that Johnny Manziel, his agent took him back and he's like getting serious looks at from teams? Who are these teams?
From what, like CFL teams or what?
I don't know, but I'm intrigued. I tweeted earlier today, or I don't remember when it was, but the NFL's a better place with Johnny football in it.
I don't know. I guess I don't hate it. I don't know. He's not a quarterback that I would ever want, but
No.
I'd like to watch him play on somebody else's team just to.
I love a good train wreck, man.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, let's move forward with some train wrecks and talk about the New York Jets. So they just ended up releasing probably one of their better players of all time, in Darrelle Revis. But it was time to go with his legal issues and with his decline in play the last year and a half, 2 years. So they no longer have Revis, so secondary may be an option. They have the sixth pick in the draft, so they're going to have a plethora of options. So what are your most pressing needs for the football Jets?
Man, I went 3 deep on these guys because they're so hard.
Dude, you could probably could have went like 8-9 deep.
Oh yeah, easily. So I didn't rank them in any order. I just started off by putting the offensive line. I mean, their whole damn offensive line was hurt last year. All guys, 4 of the guys I think were over 30 years old. So you got to look to improve that offensive line, both guard and tackle and everywhere.
Well, and they just lost. They just released Mangold too.
Yeah, exactly. So you got to look to add on that offensive line. At least, I mean, you need to get guys and you need to get depth. So they got a lot of work just in general to do on the offensive line. Free agents that I'm looking at are, and God, I must be crappy because I haven't seen a lot of signings, so I'm hoping I didn't miss any signings or franchise picks. But Andrew Whitworth of the Bengals.
Yep.
And Russell Okung were just 2 guys I brought up from the Broncos.
Yep.
And then also guards, TJ Lang for my Packers and Kevin Zeitler, just guys that I kind of threw out there that were free agent options that they could grab a guy in free agent and potentially still draft an offensive lineman because they're that shallow right now, hurting. But I was looking at the linemen in the draft, and they're not. This is a weak lineman draft. This is probably one of the weakest lineman drafts I've ever seen.
Especially after last year's, how last 2 years were stacked.
Yeah, really the only option they have of taking somebody in the first round for an offensive line is the Wisconsin tackle Ryan Ramsey.
Yeah.
So
and 6 is way too early.
It just doesn't seem like an offensive line draft choice in the first round is an option for them there.
Right.
Why don't you take one?
Well, I'll agree because I had just tackle in general, but you're right. The entire offensive line needs addressing. And I'm with you. I don't think you can do it through the draft right now, especially if you want that young stud. You got to look at free agency right now. So I'm hoping but I think it'd be ideal for the Jets to take to address offensive linemen in free agency. And then when you're looking at a couple other needs, I had quarterback and secondary. I mean, they invested a draft pick in Christian Hackenberg, but that looks like a wasted pick. I mean, he literally couldn't find the field last year, despite that team struggling terribly at quarterback. So he's basically a wasted pick. There were rumors a while back of Cutler going to the Jets, but I don't like that. I mean, your sole point of needing that kind of stopgap with the Jets, you need to start with someone more fresh. So I don't really like him even as a temporary fix. So if their favorite quarterback in this draft is available at the 6th, they could go there. Otherwise, I feel like they're in that same situation as Buffalo. They have to go secondary, and they literally can't screw this up because they're probably going to have their pick of guys like Quincy Wilson and Marshawn Lattimore, Hooker, Adams. They're going to have their pick of these guys. So I never say never, but I really don't think they can mess this one up either if they go defense, if they go secondary.
So I put the exact same positions there. I have cornerback and QB on my list. I didn't say D-backs because they do have Kelvin Fryer, a really good safety, a solid safety. So I went really go to the safety position. I'd be looking more cornerback if I were them. Again, I put Marshawn Lattimore down as well for Ohio State. And I also had the free agent options of A.J. Bouye, who we talked about 2 or 3 times already now. But I want the Packers to get him, so I'm sure I'll talk about him again later in one of our podcasts. And then also Tremaine Johnson.
Johnson got tagged today.
What?
Tremaine Johnson was one that got tagged today as well.
Oh,
yep.
I didn't look at the news. I was just swamped at work, so I missed anything that happened today. And then I also put down quarterback, and I didn't even put down Jay Cutler because I know that they had talked about him. But obviously, you got your Tony Romo, and I even put down Mike Glennon as an option. Yeah, I don't know. I put him down there. He's young. He's got a long neck.
He's like the giraffe. How about that giraffe on Facebook? Did that thing have its baby yet?
What?
You don't know about that?
No.
They started videoing it on like Thursday or Friday of last week. This giraffe at this zoo was supposed to give birth, and I don't even know if it has yet.
Yeah, I think I saw a little bit.
When we were watching at one point, someone made a comment like, yeah, they're just bluffing us all. There's no way this giraffe's even pregnant. We're all just watching this giraffe sit in a room. And like 4 days later, when the thing was still pregnant, I'm like, dude, we're right. They just freaking totally bluffed us.
They're having with us. So I put him down, and then obviously you've got your quarterbacks in the draft that I don't know that we need to go over because we're about to, but there are 3 quarterbacks. They're Trubisky, Deshaun, and Trubisky. So I think their top priority should obviously, I think their top priority for the offseason should be offensive line, just in general. Yeah. And then try to shore up other things after that.
Right. Well, that'll be a good transition point because now that we're through the division, we'll just go right into our first draft position. We're only going to cover one position probably per podcast, so we'll do quarterbacks. And you were talking about kind of your top 3 there. So how do you currently have them ranked in your eyes, anyways?
In my eyes, I'm racist. I have.
So am I guess.
I have Mr. Trubisky number 1.
Oh,
and
geez.
then I have Deshaun Watson and Deshaun Kaiser as my top 3.
Okay. I'm reverse racist, I guess.
Yeah, I'm reverse racist too.
Yeah, it's funny how this worked out.
Yeah,
I actually have Deshaun Watson at 1, Deshaun Kaiser at 2, and then Trubisky at 3.
Yeah.
We've talked about this. I'm not comfortable with any of these guys really as my top guy. That's why it's not a terrible year to find that stopgap quarterback if you are a team like the Jets. I mean, I'd hate for it to be Cutler. If you want it to be Glennon, fine. But there was already some people on Twitter today talking about USC prospects and saying when you're watching their film, you literally keep your eyes on the quarterback because he's already super special. I think he's a redshirt freshman right now, so he'll be redshirt sophomore next year. But just
Darnold,
just unbelievable. I mean, that's Dick Hammer's grandson right there.
Yeah, Dick Hammer.
But we'll talk a little bit more about these guys in this draft. So my number 1 guy, Deshaun Watson. I feel like the best way for me to break him down was just to do a quick Michael Scott pros and cons list.
Yeah.
So I've been watching a lot of Office reruns lately, so that's where I got that one from.
I did it a little differently, by the way.
Oh, that's fine.
Similar but different.
That's like a classic Michael Scott line.
Exactly.
My pros with a guy like Watson, obviously being in 2 national championships, he knows how to get to big games, and he's played well in those big games. Also, he's a dual threat quarterback. Last year, 41 passing touchdowns, 9 rushing. He's got a fairly decent arm, and he's heady. He's fairly smart. He knows where to go with the ball at least. He's not this one-trick pony where if the first option's not there, he's tucking and running. He actually sees the field pretty well. And then in the cons part, turnovers are the first thing that you always think about when you think of Deshaun Watson. Last year alone, 17 interceptions. And then also the fact that he played in a spread offense, so he has very little work from under center. And we've seen quarterbacks struggle with that when they move to the NFL. So that'd be a con on him. And then also just his accuracy in general. He's not quite there yet, and obviously in the NFL you have much tighter windows. So even though he played really well in some national championship games against a good Alabama defense, every guy in the NFL is like those Bama defenders. So you're going to be playing in a lot tighter windows. And honestly, for where I think he's going to go in a draft like this, if the Browns like him, maybe they take him at 12. Otherwise, here's my pick for where I really like Deshaun Watson to fall. Number 23 to the New York Giants.
Okay, I can see that. Yeah.
I like the idea. I just like the idea that Eli's, like his owner said, Eli's on the back nine. So I don't think you're really going to shake a guy like Eli by bringing in a young developmental quarterback. So bring him in now. You've got some good pieces. Like, I know that they want to win now, but you also need to look at the long term in this situation. And I don't think that's going to shake a guy like Eli. So I really feel like the Giants at 23 is an ideal landing spot for Watson.
Yeah, I never considered that spot.
I like to think outside the box, man.
So what's the stereotypes that we say for guys like this? Great athlete, flashy, game comes easy, natural talent, something like that.
Yeah.
Black quarterbacks. Is that the kind of thing we say for him?
Yeah, I think you nailed it.
Yeah. So, like you said with Deshaun Watson, I did strengths and weaknesses, and I said some similar things to what you said. He's shown the ability to make big plays in big games. I'm just reiterating. At clutch times, he's a great athlete. Again, that starts up But my biggest worry with Deshaun Watson, just guys like this in general, is that when it comes to the NFL, and I think we're seeing this a lot, they rely a lot on their athleticism, maybe a little too much. Because when things start to break down or their first option's not there, they tend to take off and run.
Right.
And that's what worries me with a guy like Deshaun Watson running the ball after an option not there. It just doesn't work as good in the NFL as it would in college.
Right.
And to sit back, try to read your regressions, and if after 3 or 4 seconds that's not option, then maybe let you run. But if the option's not there and you take off, you're going to be in trouble right away. And these guys are a lot faster, a lot more disciplined in the NFL, and I think that's my biggest worry with a guy like Deshaun Watson when it comes to the NFL. You're playing guys way better than Alabama.
Right.
So.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, he was my number 1. Sounds like he was your number 3.
2.
He was your 2. Who was your 1?
Trubisky.
Do you want to go into Trubisky?
Yeah. I know he's only played, I think it's 13 games is what I've heard in college football, somewhere around that in general. Not really worried about that. I mean, if you're a talented quarterback, you're a talented quarterback. Did Tom Brady ever start a game in college?
He platooned with Henson.
Yeah, so I'm not too worried about that. The guy has good pocket awareness, and the thing I like about him is he's an accurate thrower from short to intermediate range. And I think the downfall of a lot of quarterbacks, a lot of rookies coming in, is that the fact that they aren't accurate from that short to intermediate range. They throw good deep balls, but they aren't accurate 5 to 15 yards. Then you need to be able to make accurate throws 5 to 15 yards downfield and good decisions. Look at Dak Prescott. That's where his bread and butter was this year.
Yeah.
And they were excellent because he was a good decision maker, didn't have an amazing arm, but it was fine because he had a good running game, but he also was able to throw accurate balls in short to intermediate range. I think those are harder throws than the deep balls that are being thrown. They're lower percentage. Deep balls are lower percentage, so you're going to throw short to intermediate passes more often.
Right.
My weakness of him is he might not be the best deep ball thrower, but like I said, that's a low percentage pass anyways. So to me, the more important throw is hitting those guys from 5 to 15 yards. So I might actually be a little bit too high on Mr. Trubisky. I like him, but I do think he's going to go to San Francisco at the number 2 pick in the draft. I think that's going to be my prediction that I have when we do our mock draft. I think I'm going to stick with that the whole time.
Yeah, I have Trubisky as my 3rd quarterback in this. I almost put him at 2. I put him at 3, but honestly, I'm with you where I think he's the first quarterback off the board. What I don't like is what you said. He has 1 season of experience, so I hate buying into that, especially at a team like North Carolina. What I do like is the fact that he took care of the ball. So 30 touchdowns, just 6 interceptions, and I believe 2 of those came in his bowl game as well. So there's a lot to like about a guy like Trubisky, but at the end of the day, I'm not really sold on a guy, especially in the first round, that has a little more than he has, a baker's dozen of starts. I mean, that's just not enough for me. But I do see him being the first one gone, like you said, the 49ers, if not the 49ers. You've got the Bears and the Jets right behind you who are also starving for a quarterback. So I think just need is going to take over at some point, and Trubisky's going to be the first one off the board.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't see how he doesn't be. I would be surprised if he didn't go to San Francisco, although I'm sure there's other people thinking otherwise.
Right.
I just feel like that's the spot.
So you had Trubisky, Watson, and now Kaiser?
Yeah. You want me to go into Kaiser?
Yeah, go ahead.
I don't know too much about Deshaun Kaiser.
That's the theme of your day.
What?
That's basically your theme today.
I don't know much. I didn't get to look into him too much. I didn't really watch him at all this year. I know he replaced what's his name that transferred to Florida State. Right, what's his name?
I'm blowing my nose. You keep going.
You blow your nose. Next time, tell me what the name of the guy is that left him.
Malik Zaire.
Yeah, Malik Zaire. Yeah, he's paced out. But all I know is he's gonna. I read that he has a good arm. And I stuttered a little bit there, so that was weird. But I read that he has a good arm, and he makes throwing the ball look easy. And he throws a good deep ball. But again, this is another worry that I have is they're going to rely. A guy like this is going to rely too much on his arm, and force throws in pressure situations like that. So that's my worry with a guy like this. He's going to throw maybe be a high interception thrower because he's going to trust his arm more than his brain. Like, he's going to just throw the ball out there more than he should. So, I forgot to give my stereotypes for Trubisky. I think he's a gym rat, a real hard worker. He's in the playbook, studies hard, and he's a real think tank type of guy. So
yeah.
That's my thoughts on Trubisky as well.
If there's one area where you are bringing it today, it's in the stereotyping of quarterbacks. I'll give you that.
Thank you. Trying hard.
Yeah. Well, with Kaiser was my number 2 quarterback. He's got the size, he's got the tools, but at the end of the day, he's never put it all together all at once. Yeah. So you don't really know what he has, which could be good if you get him with a guy who works well with quarterbacks. Hey, you've got a good athlete, you've got a good quarterback on your hand that you can kind of mold your way. But also just super inconsistent throughout his time at Notre Dame. Really disappointing that Notre Dame didn't win more with him, considering that Notre Dame has been like kind of crappy the last few years. But leading up to Kaiser's time, they were decent, and they were playing with quarterbacks that weren't as good as Deshaun Kaiser. So that kind of concerns me. I don't really see Kaiser as a first rounder. I need more flash than what I saw from him. 26 touchdowns and not even 3,000 yards last year. I know he had some injuries, but still, you got to perform better than that to be a first-rounder in my eyes. So I kind of see him as a second-round project-type guy. In the second round, the Jets and Niners both have early picks. So if the Niners don't take Trubisky, if they want to go a different route, maybe they can get a guy like Kaiser on the way back. And like we said earlier, I really like the Jets to take secondary in the first round. So maybe if a guy like Kaiser's there on the way back, you could get him then.
Yeah, I think he's a guy that's going to drop out of the first round as well. I just can't wait to see what the surprise is. Like, is there going to be a quarterback that you think just randomly goes in the first round that where everybody's like, what the hell just happened?
Maybe it's Pat Mahomes from Texas Tech.
Could it be a team like the Giants that kind of just like somebody that they can't get in the second round, so they grab him in the first?
I know there's always like these crazy surprises in the draft, but I don't know, man. Do you want to make this crazy surprise a quarterback that's unproven? I don't know.
I don't know either.
That's tough. Mahomes is my fourth ranked guy. I mean, stat machine at Texas Tech. Last year, 41 passing touchdowns, 12 rushing touchdowns, over 5,000 passing yards. But I always come back to a guy like this. Can you ever trust a quarterback from Texas Tech?
I can't trust a quarterback that plays in the Big 12.
That's another good point. I mean,
there's no defense.
Right. I mean, they always put up
Taylor Martinez looked good against all the guys in the Big 12.
Yeah, I mean, they're constantly the guys that are putting up the biggest numbers. They're always kind of talked about for like Heisman just because they're having these huge numbers. Texas Tech alone had like Graham Harrell and Cliff Kingsbury. Just that come to the top of my mind right now that put up just monster numbers, but those games just obviously failed to transfer to the NFL. I think in this case, Mahomes is the best prospect that they've had, and I like that he's been able to play for 3 years in that system. But like I said for Watson, I dislike that he played in a spread offense. There was also kind of like a gimmicky offense against really weak defenses. So if you're going to even compete in the Big 12, yeah, you're going to put up a ton of points. So I kind of see him more as maybe that like second or third round kind of guy. But you had mentioned maybe there's that team in the first round that would take him. So how about the Texans at 25 and maybe have him sit behind Osweiler for a year?
Yeah, that wouldn't be a bad idea, but I feel like you could take somebody in the second round or third round that you could grab that you could have sit behind Osweiler for a year. And I hate the sentiment of sitting behind Osweiler. That just sounds awful.
That's what I was going to say. Does sitting behind Osweiler hurt you more than it helps you? It's not like he's sitting behind Brett Favre like Aaron Rodgers was.
Yeah, we should just sit Osweiler and just cut out the behind.
There you go. I like that. Well, I'm not sure that we need to go too much deeper into quarterbacks right now. The only other one I had on my list was California's Davis Webb, who I don't really like at all. I mean, he was a worse prospect than Goff, who was a huge reach in last year's. I see Webb as a guy like basically a career backup. The only teams that I could see really drafting him and having a plan for him would be teams that already have a quality quarterback and are just drafting for the long term as a potential career backup.
Yeah.
So
I love career backups. Being a Packer fan, I've seen all those. I've seen 20 years of career backups.
Yeah, no kidding. What a luxury. Those career backups are like starters for my team. So.
Oh, it's been so nice.
Nice. Well, thanks once again, for a lot of agains there. For listening, be sure to continue listening this offseason. We're going to keep breaking down each division and each position leading up to the draft. We'll also be doing a first-round mock draft contest as we get closer to the draft, so continue to be on the lookout for that. And as always, be sure to tweet any questions you'd like answered on the podcast. We're found on Twitter @LoadedBox. Continue to like and share the Facebook page, and as I already said, find us on iTunes and share and subscribe and review there. DJ, why don't you send us out?
Can I tongue punch your fart box?